You said tell me, you said show me, but really I did want this movie to scare me.
Holy fuck, that's fucking scary.
See? Drive-by movies, you're watching.
Fresh releases.
My name's Blaze.
And I'm James.
And this week, we're talking Scare Me.
Fred, what are you doing with that poker? Is part of the story?
Scare Me is a pretty short and to the point kind of movie. It's basically about a power outage where two strangers who are both kind of horror writers, they just tell each other scary movies. This is a fun concept. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts were, Blaze. Blaze, what'd you think?
I have to say this is probably one of the most hyped movies coming into this year. Before the whole year was shut down, it was announced that this movie was already bought, right before getting into Sundance. Like, we're not even going to the auction. Shudder purchases the movie before it even screens at Sundance. So that was super hype, being that Sundance is one of the major film festivals that actually took place this year before everything went to online film festivals. I had to say I was really stoked for Scare Me. It has a cool concept, even though I couldn't really get a ton out of it. I know Aya Cash is in it, and she, has just, been in The Boys. She's, made famous from You're the Worst. And seeing her in something, I wasn't really a big fan of You're the Worst, but seeing her in something like this and The Boys most recently, I have to say I did pretty much enjoy this. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of hesitation there for me, but I do kind of want to hear what you have to say first.
So, first and foremost, I enjoyed it too. I think I probably enjoyed it a little bit more than you did. It's not going to be in my favorites of the year, but I really had so much fun with this movie. I thought that it proved a lot wrong in terms of it proved a lot of writers wrong is what I'm getting at. There's a lot of things that writers are set to do, what you have to do, and this kind of proves, no, you don't necessarily have to do that as long as this is the right development and that there's a lot of visuals to go with these words. And while the visuals literally are not there, you can place it, and it made it a fun campfire style scary story to listen to while you're at you're camping, essentially around a campfire. I just thought that would be a fun time, and just the idea that they were able to elongate that premise, I thought it was a cool, fun time and definitely interesting, something new I hadn't seen before. And I was surprised to see that Aya Cash. I'm not too familiar with her other than The Boys, as you mentioned. I didn't realize that she had such a huge following because some of the reviews on Letterboxd that I was reading and also on Twitter, a lot of people are saying oh, I'm watching this just for her. And I'm glad that Shudder's getting a lot of viewers for this movie just from her being in this movie. But I was more impressed with Josh Rubin. I'm not familiar with his work, but I liked what he did with this, writing and directing this movie as well as starring in it. And then I know he has a werewolf movie coming out in the next year or so that he's in post-production for. I can't wait for that as well, just because I love werewolf movies. But yeah, I had fun with it.
Is everyone making, sorry to interrupt you there, but is everyone making a werewolf movie right now? Are werewolves in?
I hope so, because I am all for it. It's been a while since we've gotten a good werewolf movie. There are some fun ones out there. It doesn't mean they're good, but I want a good one. And not saying Josh Rubin's going to be the savior of werewolves, but if he is, I'm stoked on it.
I know that movie, I can't remember the name, so it makes it even less exciting, but there's a Twitter user named Jimmy. It's Jimmy Makes Movies or something, and he just recently is making a werewolf movie right now that people are very hyped about in the indie filmmaking community. So I just find it to be funny that there are two werewolf movies that are both being made in independent cinema, or maybe they're the same one, I don't know, but that's just hilarious to me that you have this vertical thinking that's happening at the same place, same time. But anyways, we're talking Scare Me here, so let's get back to the movie. I had to say, when it comes to this movie though, the thing that really kind of let me down, just because there's so much hype, it's going to Shudder exclusively. I expected a horror movie. Of course, it's Shudder. I subscribe to it. Am I crazy? Why would I be subscribed to something that's all horror movies? And then this wasn't a horror movie. This is definitely more along the lines of a comedy. So if you're looking for something funny and in that market of like it's a horror comedy, this definitely fits the bill. I honestly thought this was a horror movie booting it up, so I was just in for something a little bit different. So a little bit let down on the horror front. When it comes to the comedy, though, I think this film really delivered.
Yeah, that's definitely it. I was expecting going into it a horror film. I didn't watch the trailer. I always like to go into movies blind as much as possible. If you look at the poster, you can kind of tell it definitely is going to have a comedic aspect to it. But how much more of a comedy it was definitely took me by surprise. And it definitely worked for me. I can see a lot of people not really being into this with so much not really happening. It's definitely a more tell me versus show me kind of story, where it's funny because this movie really tries to push more descriptions within its characters and motives, but we're not really getting that in the actual movie. And I just found that like really funny watching this throughout the movie. It's just really unexpected. It's unlike anything I've really seen. Not saying that this is the most original movie as well too, but it just really caught me off guard what we got into, and just seeing that this is on Shudder. And it also kind of, I think it's just the snow of this movie, but it almost feels like a Christmas movie at times too.
Yeah, it definitely has that vibe. You said tell me, you said show me, but really I did want this movie to scare me. So I have to say, when it comes to like the horror elements, there were aspects where it was trying to, get into the descriptions and the storytelling that was in this movie where it is trying to scare you. The sound editing and sound effects used in this film, those soundscapes that they really created to, bring these stories to life that these characters are telling each other, really, added this extra layer that was very cool. It did actually kind of remind me of the movie we checked out last week, Come and See. There was so much there in the sound editing that it reminded me of something like that, where you have these two characters that are telling each other stories to try and scare each other, but you're not like filming those stories, so you have to bring them to the editing room in another way. Sound editing was how they did in this film, and I thought that was probably one of the coolest things about this film that I don't know if everyone's really focusing on. They're more focusing on the ways that they use the cinematography to excite these films, other than just a full shot of the guy, oh, this is what happened now, so and so. The cinematography was really exciting, but the soundscapes are what really, I think, made this film come to life.
Yeah, going along with that, one thing that I also really appreciate with this movie was the use of belittlement. Right away, we see the Josh Rubin belittling this Uber driver that he's getting. The fact that she says, "I'm kind of a writer myself," and he's just like, "Oh yeah, here we go." And then when he starts to talk to Aya when she's a writer, when he finds out that she's a celebrity, just the way she kind of belittles him. She doesn't seem to do it intentionally, but because she's famous, she kind of comes off that way. And just seeing that the Uber driver, like getting into spoilers, just the way with it ends, just seeing it kind of come full circle. Like I really appreciated that aspect and did make a fun laugh. Like, I don't know if some people might have missed it, but there was like a mid-credit scene, and it kind of goes back to the Uber driver becoming famous at the end. Yeah, if you happen to miss it for whatever reason. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things, though, about the movie is the fact that, besides the fact that it's kind of skates the line of being horror and then it's more of a comedy, is just that whole, interpersonal relationship between somebody who isn't quite made it yet and is trying, and somebody who's, very successful and maybe not necessarily struggling, but like, committing themselves to, continue their success, create new and interesting stories. Mm-hmm. And it was just fun watching, like, basically the master versus the person who really, really wishes that they could become a master. Like that, just having those two dynamics there with their characters made this film extremely entertaining, because it can be related to so many other, things. It wasn't just writing. It could be anything else, essentially, where you have somebody who's a master and somebody who just really wishes that they were the sensei.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, closing thoughts with me. I mean, I have to recommend this movie. I keep having so much fun with some of the new releases that are coming out on Shudder. There isn't really a whole lot to say with this movie just because there isn't a whole lot shown with it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely recommend for people to check out, whether you're into horrors or comedies or the mixture between both. I think there's a lot in it for everyone. It's definitely not a movie that's catering towards a specific audience. It's just a love letter to two different audiences, and I thought it came together pretty nicely.
Yeah, and I have to say I enjoy that Shudder is like kind of branching out in terms of like picking up films that aren't necessarily just horror films, and maybe, you know, just because I always expect whatever is gonna be on Shudder each week is like a new horror movie. It's cool of them to, you know, try and look for a new audience essentially that's still within the genre, I guess you could say. So I did enjoy the film. It just obviously when I see something pop up on Shudder, I'm expecting there to be a little bit of blood spilled, but not the case for this one.
Yeah, so if you haven't, definitely check out the movie on Shudder, and after doing that, come back here, leave a comment, and let us know what you thought about the movie. That's a great way to help support the show.
And if you haven't already, guys, smash that like button, leave a comment below, let us know what you thought of Scare Me, and hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
We've also been bringing it up, but we're also new to Instagram. Be sure to check that out in the link description below, and tune in next week for a brand new video.